Dean, I'm wondering, I remember with the case of Richard Colvin, what we learned early on was that some diplomats were being told to watch what they wrote in memos. I'm wondering if you can give us any insights on, it's one thing to even get your hands on documents, but are documents no longer, are there memos that don't get written now? Are there things that bureaucrats guard against so that there will be no paper trail?
It's a good question. Certainly, way back in 1995, when the Liberal government carried out its so-called program review, which was basically cutting and slashing spending, it eliminated a lot of clerical material. A lot of documents just disappeared or weren't filed or weren't created. So we had kind of an experience of it in the mid-90s. Today, I would say that it's a little different. We have a government that is holds, this is going to sound a little strong, but holds the bureaucracy in contempt. We've seen senior civil servants berated. We've seen senior civil servants fired or demoted for speaking their minds, speaking the truth. And so there is a climate of fear in the bureaucracy, in the federal bureaucracy. That's for sure. I hear it all the time. But oddly enough, it has had the opposite effect. Bureaucrats want to protect themselves from these politicians. And so they tend to write everything down. Things they probably didn't write down 10 years ago, in order to protect themselves in case, in case an incident becomes examined by a parliamentary committee or something. They want a paper trail. So I find it's, oddly enough, it's the opposite is happening. Bureaucrats, in order to cover their asses, are writing everything down, and that makes for a whole new field of documentation to harvest out there.
I'm wondering too about, in the United States, I'm always struck by, I don't know what the year is it 25 years or something, but suddenly all sorts of cabinet documents are made public and you get the real inner workings of major political events, major decisions. I can even think of what Gorbachev, Reagan were doing, that all that stuff just came out in the last 2 or 3 years. John, I'm wondering, do we have similar things? Is there a law that forces certain things to go on the record? Is that in danger of being messed with?
No, because that's all archival. So it's.
But who decides what goes in there?
Well, the National Librarian and the National Archivist. He has all the documents, and once a year, usually in November, there's a whole batch of material that's made available, and there's usually some coverage of it.
That's the 20-year rule. That's the
20-year rule where it all comes out. So there's this massive material that pops out.
Would he get his hands on, the archivist get his hands on the Chrétien diaries, the agendas?
Oh, yes.
They will come out in 20 years.
By the time we get the decision from the courts, 20 years will pass.
That may not be long enough for some things.